Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It is your friendly neighborhood Prax. It is a Sunday night. How we doing? How's life going for you all? Oh, look. Hope everybody's doing okay. You can hear me, but you can't see me because the transition didn't work. I'm sorry about that. I don't know why the transition didn't work. You could hear me. You should also be able to hear music. Can you confirm that you hear music? Please, to make sure I have got that at least working. Because that is a thing that there we go. I fixed that. Okay, now that you turned off Skyrim, you can hear the music. That's good. I was watching Myth yesterday, and he was using Pretzel, and I was like, ooh, I can use Pretzel for this. And so I was like, let me see if this works, and let me experiment with it. Hello, Valtiel, welcome in. Hey, Faye, welcome in. I see Lysander and Poke, welcome in. We do not have a Witcher tonight because people are feeling under the weather. And we want to make sure that they feel better. And not, worse. So, that's like, why am I getting all these green spots? That's not good. There we go. So we were like, all right, it's not that big a deal. We can do some other stuff. Instead, I will talk more about this campaign that I'm building, this D&D campaign that I was building, and I figure I did a lot of it last night. We talked about world building last night, and my thoughts about alignment and how that can work, and all of those kind of things. And yes, I am actually building a true D&D campaign. I am intrigued by myself. You can see my Witcher book in the background, but yeah, so I'm working towards bring down the brightness. That's what I need to do. There we go. And bring up the warmth just a little bit. There we are. You're done with your building for the weekend? I mean, that's good, Hawkeye. That's good. Enjoy the rest of your week. Did you enjoy the rest of your weekend? Did you have a good Father's Day, Hawkeye? I know that how were your younglings, as they say. But yeah, so I figured, we didn't have Mech Time yesterday because a bunch of people were out. We're not going to have Witcher tonight because people are not feeling well. So instead, we can just work towards making things and building out this campaign that I'm going to be working on. I've been doing... You went for ice cream plus the Ren Fair yesterday? Yeah, that's a good weekend. Ice cream and a Ren Fair? That sounds like a good weekend, actually. We did a cookout here. Like, kind of very low-key kind of day. But, my sister came and her husband and, made steaks for everybody else and lamb for me. Because I can no longer have steak. It is a sadness in my life, but it is a true one. Let me know if the music is too loud. I don't think it is, but that's just, I'm playing with it. I'm learning how this works. It's a new thing for me. There we go. This has been a learning experience. I'm getting to be like a fancy YouTuber, fancy Twitch streamer, that I'm doing like actual like things and all of this. And I was like, all right, let me see if I can pretend to be a pro. Hashtag pretending to be a pro is my life right now. Yes, it's a pro streamer. Hashtag pro streamer. Sometimes I even count. But yesterday we were talking about this world that I'm building for this campaign that I want to run on the channel in the near future. It's going to be a tier 3 into a tier 4 level campaign. It's going to focus on mostly the PCs who were previously adventurers and have quasi-retired, right? Like they're level 14. They're gonna start at level 14. I want to start high. That's what I want to do, and I want to start with them being level 14 and being like, okay, you've quasi-retired, right? Like you did your major adventuring. Now you're out relaxing, you have your wealth, you have your stronghold, which for those of us who played second edition or advanced or basic or first edition, that was a goal, right? Your goal was to advance through the social strata, and your like PC was a adventurer for some of them for the honor and glory, but also for the gold, because gold was XP. Right? To get XP, you needed the gold and gold pieces. And because of that, you had the goal to advance through your social strata and become, go from lower classes to upper classes and have a stronghold and build, if you were a cleric, your goal was to build a major temple or a church and start, proselytization and all of these things. If you were a druid, your goal was to gain that, grove kind of thing. All that kind of advancement for you in society. So I want to start the game at level 14, have the players at that higher level, and have them be right at the point in their lives where they've retired back to their strongholds and are working at what are they doing after this thing, and then they'll be see where they are kind of thing. Hello time, welcome in. It is yeah, I mean, it is already Monday where you are. It's also really kind of early where you are. I hope you get some rest. But thanks for stopping by, time. We're gonna be low-key and kind of chill tonight, so there's that. So the goal for this is to kind of start them after they've already have established themselves, they've quasi-retired, there isn't this big thing that they need to fight. I'm not running, I'm not looking for PCs that were originally designed to run that 1 to 20 kind of thing. But they're going to start at 14 and kind of probably go to 18 over the course of the campaign. But I'm going to play with two major things that a lot of people don't play with these days in D&D, particularly in 5th edition D&D. I want to play with alignment, which we talked about yesterday, and how I'm looking at the true definition of alignment, as in being in line with an ideology, with an ideal. And when you break that publicly, right, when other people see you not act in a way that agrees with your stated belief system or your stated ideology, that could have consequences. If you're a cleric or a paladin or possibly even a warlock, because you're getting your powers from someone else, you know, you're no longer representing the brand, as they say, and you're going to lose out on the representation deal. Like, your god or patron might take away those divine powers that you're thinking of, or you might lose reputation and status in, you know, the world stage because, you know, wait, you're gonna act like this far against your stated belief system? Are you actually going to act in a way that's true and to your core beliefs? I don't know. The public might have questions about that. I don't think that I would go as far back as like first and second edition or even advanced, where you would lose a level if you broke your alignment. But probably lose access to spells or other things because of that. I have a list and a table. It would depend on how you broke your alignment, kind of thing, and how public it was. Because that's the other thing, is like, I view alignment as also a public statement of your beliefs and core ideologies in align with a, you know, for example, a god. And in this world that I'm building, the gods themselves are present and have to act through their agents, right? Like, everybody knows that the gods exist because you can't have an atheist D&D campaign. It's just not the way it works. That just doesn't work for anything. So, that's not gonna happen. But, you know. So the alignment we're going to play with. And I also want to play, the other thing I want to play with in this game that I really think is going to be interesting to play with in this game is going to be, I want to use XP leveling, and I want to use XP leveling that's, I want to use true XP leveling where you're not expecting each party member to advance equally. Right? I'm not expecting each member of the party to, they will all start at level 14, but I don't think every, you know, like, the party might not advance at that same leveling. You might have a couple players who are level 15, but there are a couple other people might still be level 14 or advancing through all of that. Exactly, the old XP debate. Faye says, we, multiple paladins, lost our abilities for a long time in our ongoing 2E game, and we're just worse fighters until we atoned because we broke our oath. It was rough, but fun to try to get back into our God's good graces. Exactly. It's like there's redemption arcs built into that kind of thing, right? There's entire stories that are built into that ideology that exist if you allow it to happen. But you need to embrace that kind of more, what's the word I'm looking for? Less, tea has been retrieved. Good on you for getting tea. What kind of tea do you have tonight, Pope? I have a question. But like, not, I want to allow for this to be more egalitarian, and I think, honestly think, the XP discussion actually allows for more egalitarian advancement, right? If you allow for XP to be gained in the other pillars of play. And that's the thing, is like, people forget that yes, you can gain XP in the, you know, in the you know, combat, but you can also gain XP through exploration and social. So the concept that you can't have differing XP values for players, I don't agree with. I would think that if we acknowledge that in the real world people gain advancement and achievement on their own rates, and they progress through their own life story at their own personal development, then you should also allow for the fact that that might happen in a game world. Pope, you have ginger, cardamom, black pepper, vanilla sugar with heavy cream. Ooh, yeah, there you go. That sounds actually pretty good. Sounds like some good tea there, Pope. But yeah, so you've got a lot of options that which you can go and start with, and from there you can play it out. So I'm going to play with XP, which means it'll be different levels and different power dynamics. I'm going to play with alignment, which I think will also be really useful. As we've been looking at this world, it's less power gaming than we've been, than a lot of people are used to playing when it comes to things like than most D&D campaigns. Exactly. Upfront buy-in makes those kind of games great, and that's why Session 0 matters. Exactly, Pope. Exactly. Session 0s are important. Upfront buy-ins from players are important. Having a discussion about what the actual concept of the game is important with players. Acknowledging that, you're going to be dealing with concepts or issues, or this is a thing I want to kind of do. It's one of the things I really, really stress when I run games. I prefer and think it is actually better overall for the whole game if character creation is part of your Session 0. Do not come to the table with your character already built. Because there's already, I never feel like that works for a one-shot, right? Where you don't really care. You're just like, okay, what are we doing? But if you're playing in a campaign, you also need to work inside the world in which the campaign is set. And one of the things that you get from that is this connection to the world that I don't think happens as frequently if you come with, I want to play this random crazy ass idea for D&D character that I've had sitting for a while. I think that's going to be great. That's what I want to play. I'm like, okay, that's great, but does it fit in the game that everyone's playing? Does it fit at the rest of this table, right? Exactly, the world and also the initial brief for the campaign. Like in the game that we're setting up here, that we're building. Hi. Why are you not? There we go. Cool. The game that we're building with in this, map that I created, my oh so stunning map, right? It's a beautiful map. is not going to have that same level of, there are certain classes and characters that are not necessarily going to work together. There are certain there are certain things that are going to exist and won't exist. We said, okay, oh, I like that time. Time says, if someday on assignment your alignment is unsound, she's got a little list. She's got a little list. So with roleplay misdemeanors, then consequences will be found. Ooh, very nice. Very nice. I applaud. I applaud. But yeah, so like this world that we built, that I am building and have kind of statted out and developed, there's a lot of things that are going on in it that are very, very different from, say, Faerun, right? Like, this is not a Sword Coast campaign. This is not a, well, I want to play a turtle. Okay, explain to me where you came from. Tell me how this works, because there aren't usually turtles in this world. I want to play a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. That's great. That's not this campaign. You can do a lot of things and we can make it work, but there needs to be some buy-in and some connection to the world. But how are we doing it? Why is my green screen being so weird tonight? Okay. We're just not going to be great. Okay. There are so many things that are just wrong right now. It's great. But whatever. It's a thing that's happening. The more you're tied to the world, the more the world can affect you and your vice versa. Exactly. Like, a lot of the comments that I hear from people who are hardline against D&D and are very much in the indie is better, and when they talk about indie, they're very limited to specifically types of indie games, and they aren't actually talking about all indie games. But a lot of those crowd are very much, we want more power and control in the hands of, like, I don't like this song. Nope. There we go. Power and control of world development and world exchange in the hands of players, and like, but you need that level of buy-in to affect it. And you need to allow for the fact that this is going to be a thing that exists. The New York jacket has come off? Which New York jacket? I just am. Here. Right here. Which one? But yeah, so you need that level of buy-in, you need that connection. It's why I think that players should build characters together, come together at sessions. Like, you may not have all of the details of your background, of your, where you came from in advance, but, the base kind of mechanics you should be building together. And you need to have, also, you need to have a connection to someone else at the table. How are you connected to someone else at the table? I'm not dealing with the Giants tonight? Oh, well, there's that. It's also just 10 degrees warmer tonight than it was last night, because the weather's been so freaking weird. But you've got, you know, you need a connection to another player at their table. You can't just be random. Exactly. In many games, going into the woods for the players is about walking the path at the local park. Exactly. Not going into the woods. Into the woods. And out of the woods. And into the woods. Thank you, Stephen Sondheim. But because of that, like, development and concern and change that exists, right? You need to have players who are accepting the world as part of the campaign buy-in, and accepting that they are here as a collaborative storytelling medium, and it is part of this collaborative storytelling medium that you need to work with people, other people at the table. Exactly. Some little bit of immersion should be involved. Exactly. There's a level of immersion. There needs to be a buy-in. There needs to be connections. There needs to be an understanding that the world is a living thing that exists, and you exist within it. And some things that you think you want to play don't work with the living world that you are as a player and a character are supposed to exist within. Exactly, Hawkeye. If you're not part of the world with the other players, why are you even at the table? And to tie into that, hey, guess who's another player at the table? The GM. The GM is also a player at the table. They also need to have a level of buy-in and connection with the players. This is why session zeros are so important. This is why it's important to, I think that character creation is so important. Group character creation is so important. It's one of the things I do if for players that for games where the group has been together for a period of time, but may not have, you know, the players may not have been together for a period of time before the game. I like to do this thing with rumors where I ask all of the players to share with me, and then I'll take away any, you know, some information, share with me a statement that's mostly true, could be true, likely false, right? And then I take away which one is which so that only I know that, and then share those, you know, share that information with the group and see how many players interact with that. Like, how are you going to play off of those rumors that exist? Exactly. The Moon Kids would not have been a thing. You know, Moon School for the Mechton campaign, which, if you don't know and you've missed out on some of our Starblade Mechton, you can check it out on the YouTube. It's right there. I'm, like, getting kind of close to 100 subscribers on YouTube, which means I can actually get, like, a personal URL, which would be kind of cool, but whatever. See, here's the thing, Kuldrick, you say that session zeros are becoming more and more important to have a solid game dynamic. And I agree in part, and I disagree in part, because here's the thing. What we now call a session zero is Moon Kids lunatics. Fair. Kuldrick, that's a fair statement about some of those Moon Kids. But here's the thing. What we now call a session 0, we used to call character creation, right? We used to call, like, in first session AD&D, or back in the olden days when I was a youngling, you went to the game. We're gonna have a new campaign. The GM's here. Everybody's gonna come together. We've got maybe 2 books for the player's handbook, and the GM is got an idea. They're going to tell you if it's a set in this setting or in a different setting, and we're going to talk it out and hash it out. And unless the GM specifically said, you know what would be really cool if you're all just random people in a bar and you meet in a tavern, we had to have a connection, because there had to be a reason that we as a group of people would be adventuring together, right? And in AD&D and in Basic, that in Redbox, that was, there is these caves, you want to make money, you want to save your village, whatever kind of reason. If you're playing in Greyhawk, there's something going on and you need to deal with it. If you're playing in Ravenloft, oh well, you all got transported into the Dread Plains. Good luck! Or you're there naturally and you've lived there your entire life. Ooh, that's worse. But because of that, you kind of have to deal with the world in which you're playing. So this concept of this new definition of a session 0, this new explanation of talking about the campaign, how it's going to be set up, how you, lines and veils, safety tools, all of these things are very good and important discussions to have. And anyone who says, well, I don't understand a session 0 is like, no, we did have this. We just didn't call it that. It was the same thing. We're doing the same thing. We're just giving a name to it now and giving more explicit understanding of what is supposed to occur at this event. Exactly. D&D version 0. You just left your parents on the farm. This is your first time in the big city. This was my dad's sword from the last war. It's rusty from hanging over the hearth. Exactly. There has to be connections and engage with the world. Why are you here? What's going on? That's okay. And it's this connections and world building that I think is important. Okay, so I need that to come up. I need that to come up. No, I need that to go down. Beware large farm boys with sharp sticks. Exactly. They're large farm boys with sharp sticks. You know what? I'm just going to get rid of this filter for right now because it's not working. Let's see if I can use another filter because... Okay, that didn't work. There we go. I remember many third and fourth sons being shoved out the door to find their fortunes anywhere but home. Exactly. Like, that was a thing that people did. You did this. Even in the real world, you did this. So this connection to the world in which you're engaging, you need to have a connection to where the world you're engaging. You need to have the connection to the people that you're engaging with, and have it, like, you don't have to know everything about them, but you're going to know a lot about them after a period of time, having spent a period of time with them. Exactly. Even if you were meant to have been apprenticed somewhere or, done something like that. Like, meeting people for the first time, like in Witcher, for Witcher Road's Home, we did that, right? In Witcher Road's Home, there were already established connections between the players in season 1 between Yanto, Brenna, and Arzo. Even if Brenna was kind of an outsider who came into the situation, and in that first night kind of developed further connections. But that slow building of long-term connections and ties is a thing that exists. No one has to know everything about you don't have to know every single detail about this person's life, but you might know something. And if you're a party that's starting out and have known each other for a while and are not just random strangers working together from a tavern, Coldrake's comment, they were all cousins. That was the first stream I was ever a part of, full-time stream that I ever did, was called The Shattered Eye. It was on Soul Bear RPG. And it was me, Simon Wandering DM, Chris Geary, and Kika Vio. And we played our session, we developed, we were going to start at level 1, but we're going to start in this village, and we were a whole thing, and we started our session 0 was actually dungeon crawlers. So we were full-on peasants, and like whichever one of our peasants survived ended up being the character that we chose and worked with. And we actually ended up all being cousins. So they were all half-elves who were all cousins through various combinations. It was interesting. It was very interesting. It was also a very interesting game that ended up, because of complications, not continuing, which I was sad about, but it's a really interesting world. But getting back to what we're talking about here, you need that connection, that buy-in, that world building. In Shattered Eye, it was that we were all cousins, and we were all from the same village, and we, knew each other because of that. And that meant that when we threw something out, we could kind of yes and it, like, right? Like, okay, I'm gonna say, we should go check on Kadarn because, he can't cook for himself. And then Simon took that and ran with it. Or we have these extra vegetables. We know he can't cook for himself. Let's bring that with him. Or in Witcher Road's Home, this connections between Arzo and Yanto versus the connection between Arzo and Brenna. Or Kadarn and Yanto and Kadarn and Brenna, or Kadarn and Arzo. Mean that there's different dynamics that at work there, and story can kind of build from those tensions. But it exists. When I ran the Vampire the Masquerade game for Simon on his channel, Vampire Nightfall, we ended up with 2 players who had never played Vampire the Masquerade before, and 2 players who were very old school Vampire the Masquerade before. And they were talking and building, and they're like, okay, so the 2 players who had never played before, they're going to play younger vampires who have been relatively newly turned, and then the older vampires are going to be like their guides on this journey. It was wonderful, and I still love #VampDads. #VampDads are great. #VampDads, #ArtDaughter, #Gremlin Stepson. Time says, a man sits with his solicitor dictating a will. To my eldest son Rothbert, I leave the farm. To my younger son Lanfranc, I leave my place on the quest. Original caption was, to my younger son Michael, leave my seat in the Irish Parliament. Yes, good, exactly, Time. You leave different things to different people. There's different interactions, different world building. And I want that kind of same feel for this D&D campaign that I'm building. I want that session 0 to kind of build these characters, have them have this connection, have them had connections before. And now, but on top of that, I want them to have had these connections, and then I want to have had a significant period of time, like 5-10 years, where they haven't seen each other, right? Because the event that's going to kick off the adventure for the campaign is this new this new ruler coming to power in one of the nations, and all of these people, these former adventurers, these level 14 adventurers who own their own property, are major landowners, are known and have massive reputations. They are celebrities throughout this world, right? If you're a level 14, you are a massive influence on this world, even if you're not a political influence on this world. And so you're a major celebrity. So, you know what? There's this, we can go back to our lovely map, I'm not going to give away all of the details because that will be things that'll happen when I discuss things with players, but you have this event of this new ruler being installed, a coronation basically event, and all of these former adventurer player PCs who haven't seen each other for 5-10 years, maybe even longer. We'll have to see what it's been when we have this discussion with the players and what they're choosing to play and how that will influence it. But they haven't seen each other in a number of years, and now they're all being invited back to this. What does it mean to be a retired orc zealot barbarian? I'll get to that question in Pope. They haven't seen each other for a number of years, and now they're at the same event, and that's where the kickoff for this campaign will happen. The impetus, as they say. So let's talk about zealot barbarian, right? Let's talk about zealot barbarian. I can't spell. The path of the zealot. Here we go. Right? Primal paths. Oh, because I don't have. Maybe I can. Hawkeye says it means you finally get to relax. I mean, does it really? Faye says campus preacher, fitness cult leader. I mean, that could be, Coldrake says, for a concept, once every 5 to 10 years, all the duchies, kingdoms, etc. send their newest tweens to the fancy celebration ritual of renewal of pledges, policies, whatever, and games ensue. Now, a new celebration is about to begin. Previous participants are asked to open the ceremonies. I mean, I see you with your Hunger Games reference there. Here, let me see if I can just create a character. We don't care. We'll just hey Pope, because this is your zealot barbarian we keep talking about. We'll talk about that. You get to be named for this zealot barbarian. Use character mancer. Race. Ooh, yeah, because you can't. Only with the. I don't have the full thing on this either, so. Let's just use half-orc for right now. I would have to change that anyways. Choose a class. Barbarian. Skill proficiencies. Intimidation. Athletics. And perception, because whatever. Next. Really custom. Okay. Look, let's roll some dice here, people. We always want to roll dice on this game, right? In this world. /R 4d6 keep 3. 1. Ooh, that was a crap roll. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm gonna make when you have a 6 in a stat, I always reroll. But 3 11s, 2 8s, and 15. Well, the 15 is going into the Constitution, right? So let's do Strength 11, Dex 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. 2 more 11s. Let's go with Path of the Zealot. Some deities inspire their followers to pitch themselves into ferocious battle fury. The barbarians are zealots, warriors who channel their rage into powerful displays. Yeah, that could work really well. Exactly. It shows you how generic the Hunger Games concept was. Let's go with an 11 in wisdom and 11 in charisma, and we'll give this poor zealot barbarian an 8 in intelligence. Choose a background, whatever. Class equipment. Let's give him a battle axe, because why not? And and 2 hand axes. There you go. Next. Okay. Okay, we don't care about this. Alright, next. Alright. Okay, building this character. Great. I actually do like the dark mode. Yeah, a zealot barbarian could be a traveling evangelist and apostle. I mean, there's lots of ways a zealot barbarian could work in this. I don't have the actual full SRD, which is gonna suck because I should probably do something about that. But yeah. Oh, thank you. Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that, Pope. I appreciate that. Well, you know what? Let's show you Sistana. No, let's go with our dear friend Eleanor. All right. No. Yeah. Actually, no, hold on. Yeah. I need to do a thing. Hold, please, while I go back to just chatting with you while I, cool. Yeah, I actually did have that very long ago. Had a thing. I'm going to do a thing. Thank you, Pope, because you are very helpful. I appreciate you. Let's edit this character. Okay, here we go. We're going to just use this as a character, and then we're keeping all of that the same. We're going to change this to a level 14, confirm, and then we're gonna, yes, confirm. We want a barbarian. Yes, take our barbarian. We're gonna, oh yeah, we have to take the, change race to an orc, And we're just going to use the basic orc, even though we know that I have changed things for orcs. Let's use the Mordenkainen's. Cool. Class level 14, Zealot Barbarian. Proficiencies at first level. What are we doing with this, Barbarian? Well, we're gonna get athletics and, perception, primal path. Let's go with Zealot. Cool. Divine Fury. Starting when you choose this path at 3rd level, you channel Divine Fury into your weapon. Strikes while raging, the first creature you hit on each of your turns with a weapon attack takes extra damage equal to 1d6 half your barbarian level. That's actually really kind of cool. The extra damage is necrotic or radiant. I like this. Let's go with radiant, because you're a warrior of the gods. Your soul is marked for endless battle. If a spell such as Raise Dead has the sole effect of restoring you to life, but not undeath, the caster doesn't need material components. Oh, that's very... Wait, you can revivify or resurrect a Zealot Barbarian without the diamond? You can revivify or resurrect a Zealot Barbarian without the diamond. Well, that's interesting. Hey, Crit, welcome in. The gods want you to fight eternally. I see this. But your definition of fight doesn't always have to be violent battle. Here's the thing, Pope. I see a retired Zealot Barbarian as like a Mandalorian, right? A true Mandalorian, not a new Mandalorian, but a true Mandalorian who is there, who is fighting to keep their world going. They're fighting to teach and fighting to keep, training to teach as well. And then, available in case something goes really wrong. Okay, we're going to just go straight ability score improvements with these, because this poor Zealot Barbarian. Exactly, the true Mandalore. Even older, not even Boba Fett, right? Like a Jango Fett or a Jaster Morel. Din Djarin. I freely acknowledge that I want to play a straight Mandalorian campaign sometime. That's a super critical, Rage Beyond Death, all this. I don't usually play Barbarians, so this is going to be interesting. Alright, abilities. Let's start with the base abilities, which I had rolled for this character that I'm using, but we'll change up those rolls with these other rolls that we have. Oh, this poor person. So we know we go in a 15 in the 15 Constitution or 15, 15 Constitution, 11 Strength, 11 Dexterity, 11 Wisdom, and 11 Charisma. And an 8 in Intelligence? Or let's go with the 11 in the Intelligence and an 8 in Charisma. Just make Charisma the dumb stat. Ooh, wait. When determining your ability score increase one score by 2 and increase a different score by 1. Or, ooh, Wait, they get a different calculation for ability score increases? Let's do this. Constitution, Dex, Strength. Cool. So what does that give you? Oh, that's just for the start. Okay. So then that goes back to going back here. So when I come here, okay. So that gives, all right, so what is that? What do we have? What are we looking at numbers wise? All right, so now we're in evens except for intelligence and wisdom, but I don't think we're going to really worry about that. So let's go back here. Yeah, it's, D&D Beyond is actually really kind of cool if you have, so let's go ahead and bump con and strength, and then con, let's just do both. Let's do strength and strength, and then this one is just con and con, and then this one would be con and strength. Con, yeah, exactly. Con, strength, and dex are their key attributes. There we go. So that gives us 15, a 12, a 19. At level 14, these are not bad stats, right? 15, 12, 19, 11, 11, 8. I've just created about 4 dozen characters over the lockdown, erased and started to go. Exactly, I've done that a bunch of times. Just having some fun and seeing where things go from here. And then, we're gonna skip the description. Well, languages. Let's give them, let's give them Celestial because they're a Zealot Barbarian. Let's give them. Ooh, I know. Let's give them Acolyte. Who has nearly 200 characters on D&D and Beyond. This guy. I see you there, Pope. I see you there. Languages. They get an additional language. Let's give a couple languages. Let's give them... Well, I mean, they know Orc. They're going to also know... I feel like they should know Dwarfish. They know Orc, Dwarfish, and... Or no, actually, because of the way this... world works, they're also going to know Elvish. Come on, where's Elf? Oh, there's Elvish. There you go. Shelter of the Faithful, suggested characteristics. We don't worry about characteristics or any of this because this is just a generic, really, really generic kind of character, but I love this picture of this orc with glasses because why not? Yeah, they have a whole bunch of weapons. They're not gonna get this. They're not gonna get this. Remove that. They can have... Well, they're gonna get rid of the plate. They're gonna leave... We're just gonna get rid of all of this right now. For right now... starting equipment. Great axe, 2 hand axes. They've got an amulet. Cool. They have regular starting equipment. Dwarf, human, and recently reborn. Ooh, very nice. So let's see this let's see this Zealot Barbarian we've built, right? Cool. Okay. Where is that features and traits? Cool. Cool. So let's see. Let's go back to our roll 20 that we've got with this. And let's see. Let's have some basic rolls, right? Let's see. Oh wait, we didn't roll for hit points for our dude, right? We didn't check the hit points on our guys. No. Character levels. Did we roll? Yeah. Cool. We need 14d12. I'm gonna roll 14d12. 98. Cool. Cool. And that means he has 154 hit points. That's a great thing. So let's see. Yeah, no, it's I always set for manual, but it only adds the the Constitution stuff. So I rolled and I forgot that. So now he has 98 hit points. He has 154 hit points. He's a beefy dude. Let's just do a straight. Oh wait, we need equipment. We have a weapon, right? Wait, no. Why don't I have my? Oh, I need to equip. Where's my equipment? Inventory here. Inventory. I need to equip my great axe and my two-hand axes. There we go. And now I can attack with this great axe. Roll to hit with this great axe. Roll. With a 13. Wow, he did not roll well. You can't see the... Oh, you need to see the rolls at the bottom there. Can you see the rolls now? Because I did it into roll 20 so that you could see it. Now you can see the rolls, right? On the right-hand side over here. Right? You can see those now? Okay, cool. Cool. So a 13 is... But he has a +7 and he only rolled a 13. Okay, there we go. With a 22 is a lot better. But still only 4 slashing damage. Wow. Why is he only getting a +2? Oh, he only has a 15 in his strength. His constitution is beefy as hell, but his strength ain't that great. But yes. So this is like, you would have a zealot barbarian, an orc zealot barbarian from the orc territories. This man has bad luck. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. He does have 2-weapon fighting. He has a dash. He has a rage. You know, let's see if he can do some more attacks. Attack. But 21 is not bad. 13 slashing. That's a lot better. 13 slashing is a lot better. Almost max damage. It's a little loud. Is it a little loud? There we go. So also he doesn't actually have that great strength. He has a 15 in strength but and 19 in constitution, so he's like can take a shit ton of damage. Oh, he has advantage on initiatives. With advantage. Oh yeah, that's a lot better than the whatever. You got the divine rage bonus? Yeah, how do you calculate the rage? Oh, +3. So it's just a d20. Oh, okay. Just a straight +3? Melee damage with strength weapons, resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing damage. You can't cast or concentrate on spells. And the rage ends early if you're knocked unconscious. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so you end up with a lot of damage. You do a lot of things. how things are things are going. But this Zealot Barbarian, it's a +3 and then a D6 +7 Radiant. Oh, there you go. Okay, so 7. He's dealing pretty good damage. A lot of damage going on to this. But this this world that we're building, this character, this Zealot Barbarian who's retired, who probably, spends time, he might be working to protect the tribe in other ways, against the creatures that exist in the wild areas around orc territories. The orc territories in this world are very much, the orcs are mostly nomadic, even within their own territories. So they're closer to Mongolian horse, or the even Turkish horse tribes. So, a Zealot Barbarian who's retired may be leading a whole war band in the orc territories, and when he or she or they have ended, come back to this event where they, are bringing whatever and being invited to, they still have their, they still can do a shit ton of damage. They're still working it out, still rocking it out and defending the area around them, but they're not going out and leading all of the charge anymore. So, what questions do we have today? What are we thinking about today as we want to talk about our world building for this campaign as it goes? What are we thinking about? Political conflicts. Ooh, we can talk about political conflicts. That'll be really interesting. All right, so let's bring that back here. Let's bring that over here. All right, political conflicts. Which kind of political conflicts are we talking about? Like, right now, there aren't any major, at this point, what I'm doing with this is there's not going to be any major wars in... so there aren't any major, standing wars at the moment. There are raiding parties, that have gone back and forth. There are, some tensions that exist. There are a number of wild areas that are cause for, issue. Holy wars are not... have not been a thing, right? Because the gods have champions and they act with their champions, and all of the nations have the same gods, even if they call them discussions all the same. The last major religious war was in Saling, when the Great Lady led this religious revolution, overthrew the government, and established the theocracy that is in Saling today. There are, you have, a lot of border trade issues and border raids, between Cortel and Wallaba, and Cortel into Varoom, really. And our pirate dwarves are a thing. Look, they're privateers. They operate under the auspices of their own government. They fly the government's flag. They're just, opportunist. There is, there are raiding parties of, there were raiding parties of orcs were a thing that people talk about, particularly in Walaba and Tenerique, and the Empire claims that, the orcs have a long history of raiding, and they're uncivilized because of this, and we don't want them to become a unified nation, because if they did, we would suffer because of the raids that exist. Whether that's true or not is an entirely separate and internal question within the orc territories, that are slowly gaining in recent years a consensus of unification, a sort of unification within their clans and tribes. The last major war, as we would define it, actually occurred between Novigrr and the Empire, when the Empire kind of was pushing for further unification across the north, and Novigrr was like, nah, stay on your own side of the mountains. And we don't want you here. We're fine. And in response to Novigrr, to Varum's attempts to march through, Novigrr took their ships through their fjord and raided the hell out of the giant coast of Varum, which doesn't really have a navy. Which is an oversight on their part, but most of Varum, most of the warrior classes in Varum are either cavalry that started as the human nation cavalry, or the massive dwarven infantry, and as most dwarves are, not that fond of water, at least open water. They don't really have a navy in Varum, and so Novigrr's raiding parties were just devastating, and Varum was like, nah, we'll stay on our side of the border. It's okay. We understand now. There have been a number of scandals, but none of those have actually led to armed conflicts. There was a couple scandals between Varum and Walaba, because Walaba practices mostly triad marriage. Exactly, as you do, Crit. And Walaba's ruling class practices triad marriage, and Varum had some issues with that because they have issues. But most of the diplomatic or political scandals are internal matters between one nation or within a nation. So, that's a thing. But there are a number of, like, the exact political climate and everything, that would be ooh, do I reveal some of that as we build this? Because, we're working on this game building for the campaign. Well, I mean, this would be information the players have that they would... at the start of the game, so it would not be spoilery to talk about some things. So we can talk about, like, we talked about... I mentioned briefly yesterday each of the main rulers of each of the territories and how those are happening, right? So you have a number of rulers and the ruling class who are like, these are people who will also be represented if they are not necessarily there at this coronation event, which is actually going to be the coronation event for the King of Wallaba. It would be the I can give you this spoiler. It would be the coronation for the new King of Wallaba. And he is King Kalfani. So we need King Kalfani is then going to be the new King of Wallaba. The game is going to begin with his coronation. All of the players are going to be invited. That'll be the first session where all the players are at. But I also want to do solo sessions to introduce what all the players are doing before they come into this coronation event. What are they doing in their retirement years, basically? How are they getting along? All of that kind of thing. And I think that'll be a really kind of good introduction to the characters before we get into the meat and juicy goodness of the drama that will erupt, because mwahahaha. Those are a thing. Knightly orders exist. They are more common in certain territories like the Empire and Cortel. Tenerique doesn't really have them the same way. Saling definitely doesn't. Wallaba has an order of knights that are which are really paladins, which are attached to a couple of the temples. But an actual order of knights, as we think of them, is a thing from Varum and Cortel. Varum is, again, the Empire began as a human, a political joining of a human and dwarven settlements for the human cavalry and the dwarven infantry. And Cortel began as a military unit that was guarding the survivors of the Sundering, and that military unit, and that's why the military is so respected in Cortel. So a number of knightly orders exist in Cortel. But yeah, so the event that will be the kickoff is going to be the coronation of King Kalfani in Wallaba. All of these people are going to be invited. So it'll be very interesting to see, because Wallaba, the king is young, in his early 30s. He's a young 30. He's newly married to his two chosen partners, his wife Zakia and his shieldmate Adama. It's considered, like we said, they practice triad marriage so that you are always kind of have like each monarch marries a male and a female presenting spouse, because in that way there's always, regardless of the gender of the monarch, so they always have at least two spouses that are treated equally and have equal rank and authority within Wallaba, a step down from the authority of the actual monarch. They have trade relations with the Empire, because, like, look, this is a whole lot of Empire just to their north. The Empire is really their northern border, mostly. There's a little bit of open space. I'm going to use this black to kind of say that this here is unknown territory. But this is mostly boundary with the Empire of Varum. And, you know, in a little bit, you know, Varum, there isn't really a population here. Varum claims it, but they isn't an established population in border up until there. But this area here is very much wild, and no one claims it. They have trade relations with the Empire because they couldn't, basically it's their biggest border. They have to have some sort of trade relation. But they have a strong distrust and dislike of the Empire's power and influence that's kind of gaining through the continent. They have a large trade agreement with the Utkan orcs. And while it's still odd for orcs to live openly in Wallaba, there are a few villages that are close to the border that would, both the Utkan and the Oktan are actually, remember, further west, actually. They're actually over here. They're off the map, sort of. There are some villages close to this western border of Wallaba that have an orc presence, and it's kind of balanced and accepted. Exactly. An unknown territory, potential juicy for political and non-political reasons. Exactly. Expansionist, colonization. Nobody knows what's really in there. All of these good things, right? All of these good things. That allow for a further development, as they say, of this issue. So, yes. So, next question. Comment, query, thought, concern, quandary, fear, and or inquiry. So the PCs are all going to be from wherever they choose to be. They're all going to be invited to this coronation in Wallaba. I want to have the introductory episodes be one-on-ones. Primary lines of trade. Ooh, that is a good one. Let's use this sky blue. Sky blue? Yes, sky blue. So of course there is the ports here, major harbor ports at the rivers, and a couple on the Sekele Island for the halflings. And there's a port here. There is a north-south road and an east-west road, and then a road that follows the river through the Empire. And that north-south road continues. Hey, welcome in, Game Master's Vault. Thank you for the follow. We're talking about this game I'm going to build, world I'm building. Goes through Wallaba, into Tenerique, then goes a little west into Saling, and then continues east through Tenerique and then east into Cortel. There's another road that comes down here into Cortel. There's a road that goes into Novigrur, and from the main city in Novigrur into the Halfling territories, and that's about it. Those are the major trade routes. Those are the primary lines of trade. Most of this is overland trade. There is shipping trade, again, through these primary, but there's a lot of, this is a vast territory, right? This is a huge area of land that's going to be ship-to-ship travel between Novigrur and the port. There's a smaller port here and another small port here, but the major ports are along the river. There isn't a port here. This is mostly rocky cliff that, you know, there's a couple smugglers that use that area, but for the most part. But justice system. So the justice system varies from nation to nation, particularly because of what would be considered criminal between nation to nation. Cortel criminalizes arcane magic, any and all arcane magic. Also, welcome in, Unstable Dios. Nice to see you again. So Cortel is a military-based society. Service in the military is compulsory and important. The justice system is... You are lurking as usual. Hey, feel free to always lurk away. I figure that's going to be my next channel emote. Is to get a lurk emote. I think that's the next one, because I've got our Pupper Love, our Concern, and our Feel Sniper. I think the next one will be a lurk. I have to figure out, you know, when we get to that point. But that'll be a while, because that will be a very long while. Oh, I can put a follower emote in. Ooh, wait, I have enough that I can have another emote slot. Yay! I have a new emote slot. Okay, well, I need to get some new emotes, apparently. I was just checking. Lurkers are the MVPs. Exactly. Exactly. Lurkers are MVPs. Wait, I can have 7 emotes now? Wow, I have enough followers for 7 emotes. I feel fancy. I'll have to figure out, I'll have to start fundraising so I can buy some more emotes. And get some more art for emotes. That's a thing I guess we need. But as you were talking about justice system, like, so in Cortel there's a military-based justice system. There's a hard line, an expectation of military service and respect for military service. A very, very rare internal crime. Attacks by brigands or bandits are unwise but happen. And are usually swiftly dealt with. But internal crime is usually dealt with on a military service is equal to citizenship. Less of that and more compulsory. All citizens are expected to serve in military service and compulsory service, because Cortel was, like I said, so 2,000 years ago, before the game setting, in this homebrew world that I'm building, this eastern continent, or as you can see, this archipelago of what was left of the eastern continent, there was a massive magical war that occurs and shatters the entire continent, and the survivors who make their way west to this other continent. Cortel is founded by a military unit that was acting as defensive rear guard and defenders of this escaping survivor colonists. or survivor refugees is more accurate statement, not colonists, refugees. And so, because of that, the compulsory military service is kind of built into the concept of Cortel. You have a feudal system in place, a quasi-feudal system, but there is an appeals process that every, like, trial by jury, and even if it is a military trial, is expected in Cortel. Would you like to know more? Military, exactly. So, so then you have Saling, which is a theocracy, which is down here. Oh, wait, I need to be back over here. This is Saling, which is a theocracy currently led by the Great Lady, who led a religious revolution. And yeah, it's from Starship Troopers. No, I remembered. So Saling is a theocracy led by the Great Lady. Arcane magic is only permitted in certain with only permission from the government, which is very rarely given, and so arcane magic is heavily restricted. As a theocracy, they are heavily tied to religious trial, and trials of faith, and trial by combat is accepted, but very, very rare. There's the belief that, a statement of truth in front of the priests, and there are enough true clerics in Saling that can cast Zone of Truth, that religious trials are a thing that would occur. Tenerique is a more traditional justice system within a quasi-feudal system. They accept they don't have one basis of systems. They have a number of judges and circuit judges who kind of travel throughout the vast desert areas and along the limited arable land that exists along the rivers. Actually, I forgot there is another river in Tenerique I need to account for. It's the one that goes this way and comes from the mountain, and actually, because this river actually goes this way. Exactly. Notice the wizard cannot cast spells with somatic components when their hand is pinned to the wall with a dagger. Well, that's only one hand. If they can cast it with the other, then there you're good. Yeah, exactly, Unstable Dios. Truth as someone sees it is not always the same as someone else sees it. Truth is relative, and zones of truth. So we're talking, about this, we have our friend D&D Beyond. Let's talk about spells. Let's talk about cleric spells, and okay, cool. I don't want to, let's just name. Let's revert. Zone of Truth. Here we go. You create a magical zone that guards against deception in a 15-foot radius sphere, so a 30-foot diameter, on a point of your choice within the range. Until the spell ends, a creature that enters the spell for the first time on a turn or starts its turn there must make a charisma saving throw. So you have to you have an option you could pass this throw, right? On a failed save, a creature can't speak a deliberate lie while in the radius. You know whether the creature succeeds or fails on the saving throw. So if you have a religious theocracy, and the priests are also individuals who are running the justice system, that means that they would know if the person in the zone of truth passed or failed the charisma saving throw, so they know what they say is going to say the truth, and B, while they can't deliberately lie, they can choose to say nothing and just not answer. So with this, and it lasts 10 minutes, and you can keep casting it, right? You know, it's a 2nd level spell. Omission is not lying. Exactly. You can just not say anything if you're in a zone of truth. But because so you would know, but the cleric would know if you passed or failed your charisma saving throw, and therefore would know whether you're attempting to lie or not, or if you could lie or not. And if you choose not to answer, then I'm sure there are other reasons why. But within a society that's kind of built this way, particularly because it's been a theocracy for almost 50 years now, people have gotten used to it, right? There's a certain level of, if you're in a small village with max 1,000 people on it, right? No one expects. I see you, Coldrake. If you're in a small village and, you know, you're dealing with cattle theft for some reason, and somebody gets, you know, arrested, okay, you know, we know that there's a zone of truth because the local priest can cast it, and they, you know, why wouldn't you answer the question? So are you trying to lie about it? That means you obviously stole my cattle, and we're going to persecute you and shun you for that fact that you aren't answering what we know you could answer easily if you weren't guilty. So it's a psychological and anthropological cultural development that comes from that kind of level of knowledge that the people would have. So, like, Tenerique has a number of judges, and a normal court system as we would expect it, but, you know, you could request a cleric if there's one available to cast a zone of truth, but it's not a standard in Tenerique the way it is in Saling. Cortel would accept it, but they have very limited, you know, contact, you know, is only permitted by the temple and very limitedly by the government. So, like, wide spell casting, where the population would be used to the answer of a zone of truth being a valid norm, is not gonna be the norm in Cortel. Is there an appeals process for issues involving clerical misbehavior? I mean, maybe if you have money. In Saling, you mean? Maybe if you have money. But why would a cleric be misbehaving in a theocracy? You know? Our understanding of an appeals process is also very intriguing because it wasn't the norm. You know, you could petition your landlord, your noble landlord, and but you're not going to go all the way over, you know, if the local baron doesn't do anything, there's no way for a normal peasant to get to the king, right? It's not really a low one. Because power breeds corruption and clerics are wielders of power? Does it? Is it true? Or is that a perception that we have based on post 19th century Westernization and philosophy, is the conception of power breeds corruption? Um, I know that and you know that, but most peasants wouldn't care. Or if they did, they don't have an outlet for it. No, you don't trust religious personnel because they're never free. Um, but here we know they work for God. But here's the thing, Unstable Dios. We know that they work for God. The clerics in this world, in this campaign that I am building, specifically are, excuse me, this is where I go back to the fact that I'm playing with alignment, and I'm going to use alignment in this game. And because the gods are at war against the forces of evil, however we choose to define that, that's a much broader cosmological explanation, but can only act on this plane through their agents or champions or the clerics and paladins that they invest in. And so if a cleric is acting against the beliefs and actions that they are supposed to be in line with of the god that they are dedicated to, that god can take their powers away because they're not in alignment anymore, right? So I guess that's the overall appeals process that would exist, right? And because there is actually one of the gods, and this is who you would speak to in Salling about this, is Praxilus is the god of war, vengeance, and more importantly in this case, justice. So the clerics of Praxilus would be acting as judges in invoking his name at each of these trials in this theocracy. But because everyone knows that the gods can take the power that these clerics have from them for failing to act in their by their duty or their expectation. Unstable Dio says, I'm not concerned with the cleric acting against the deity, but rather the deity's needs superseding the needs of the peasants. I mean, yeah, but this world is not going to be like Faerun, where you have to deal with Cormandel and fuck him. Also, fuck you, Lathander, you're not that great. And gods who are really just there to cause bigger problems and make everybody's life a living hell, because they want to meddle. They're not petty. They have greater issues, and they gain power. At me. Come at me, Game Master's Vault. Exactly, so no one likes a fucking powdermouth. Yeah, I see you. I see you, Lathander. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. No. No. Exactly, Pope. So paladins with the zone of truth are sought out. Exactly. And paladins are traveling, would be traveling and would be, if you saw, like, if, for example, even if you're in Walaba or Tenerique or Cortel or Varum or any of these nations, and you came in a paladin of Praxilus, who makes an oath of, who is dedicated to Praxilus as a paladin of Oath of Justice paladin, they have zone of truth, and you're right, they can act as a wandering judge and jury. Hey, this village had, captured these bandits. Oh wait, there's this, this paladin, this champion of Praxilus who's just come through the village. We can have him deal with it and have him make the ruling, because we know that he serves Praxilus, Lord of Justice. And that's the thing, is a D&D Judge Dredd. There you go. Wandering. You have a cleric of Asmodeus at your table? Are you playing a villain campaign? I want to know. Because how else are you going to have a cleric of Asmodeus? I mean, not a warlock, but an actual cleric? Ooh, evil clerics are fun, but we're not playing evil in this campaign. Oh, before Asmodeus fell. Alright, before Asmodeus fell, that makes sense. Contract lawyer. So technically he's lawful neutral? Okay, I get it. I get it. A very big technicality in that moment. But you have this conception within this world that there are agents of evil, demons and devils, that represent the evil gods. But the gods that exist are actually good and serve to try and keep the world protected and fight against the forces of corruption and evil. But they cannot act directly upon the world. They can only act through their agents and their cleric, you know. Yes, actual evil gods. I am not just chaos and not just death. Death comes to everyone. It counts as one of the... Death is the gender-neutral god in this setting that is one of the gods of, you know, the gods of good, or not evil. You know, we're going to go with good and evil because I feel like it in this campaign. And, you know, I have played more morally questionable characters and, you know, my last actual long-running D&D game that I played on Simon Wandering DM's channel. I played in a Dark Matter campaign as a Void Cleric. That was fun. As Devil Dios, there is a lot of relative viewpoint about good and evil, but at the same time, there are some hard and fast lines that are not culturally relative. And like, I'm at my core an anthropologist, right? Anthropologist and classicist. So, murder, all cultures have an aversion to murder. Like, but how is that defined is culturally different. And would be important for how is it dealt with and how is it defined. Incest is the one major crime that all societies in the real world have as an actual crime. However, there are a number of different definitions of what people consider incest across the globe, and there are different cultural understandings of how that word is defined. So yes, there is a cultural relativity in certain good or evil actions, but at the same time, there is an understanding, even within the modern world of society. You have an understanding that there are things that are evil is an intentional destruction of society for the preservation of individuals to utilize others of society, is what we're going to go for as a general definition of evil. Kolchak says, when you're a serf digging in the muck day in and day out, the gods are the last thing on your mind 95% of the time. This is true. But at the same time, if you're a serf, you say that, but here's the thing. I'm gonna put on my anthropology hat for a minute. We're gonna put on my anthropology hat for a minute, and say, and my historian hat, and say, that's actually not true, Coldrake, right? Because when you're a serf digging in the muck day in and day out, you need that ideology, and you know, if you're a serf or a peasant or even slaves, you have gods who can make things better, and the belief that God can make things better. So you pray to the gods that can help you with small stuff, right? Better weather for the planting that you're doing. Better, someone is pregnant. We want to pray to Ashira the mother. Well, in this case, because of the pantheon that I'm building, Ashira the mother. Or look at the biggest thing, actually look at the calendar. Like, if we're talking about Middle Ages, and we can debate relative Middle Ages and the fact that there are a number of cultures worldwide that had some brilliant things that are all happening about the 13th and 14th centuries worldwide that are very interesting. But festivals are all dedicated to the gods or saints, and those are occur within certain cyclic patterns, but also for various other reasons. Everybody every peasant in the 12th century in England knew all of the religious festivals because it was the day you didn't have work, and you went to your local church, your local parish, you prayed, you celebrated. There was feasting foods and not just the general foods. It made life better. A belief system in the gods made life better, for a given value of better. So yes, yeah, so like murder, probably not going to be a good thing and probably be, representative of evil, although the definition of what is going to happen will be there. Slavery. Yeah, this world, slavery, not cool, particularly because, going back to our map, this here is the former continent. This over here is the former continent. All of this, this archipelago is all that's left of the continent that had the ancient empire upon it, this whole continent was destroyed by a fight between good and evil wizards that caused the evil wizards took a bunch of dragons and created a super volcano that destroyed the continent. The survivors have now come to this western continent, and it's 2,000 years later is when the game will start, and so there's been a lot of cultural development and cultural shift and all of these things, but because one of the things that I said is what I created when I created this world is the orcs were elves, and they remember being a bunch. Well, no one of the orcs who were elves are left alive, but there's this cultural memory of they remember being elves, but they were taken and tortured and twisted magically to become shock troops in this war of good versus evil wizards. So slavery, full on negative. All of the nations in this world slavery is illegal and not allowed. That's not to say that there aren't brigands and raiders who kind of practice some form of this thing, but they're evil and you can kill them because they're not good. Yeah, so all of those things that are just bad things that you mentioned, yeah, those would all be bad things and would be considered inherently evil. Exactly. Serfs also, as Game Master Vault says, serfs also had more vacation time historically than we do now to make religious pilgrimages and multiple festivals. Exactly. You look at like the saints' days. There are so many saints' days. Indentured servitude is a very interesting question because Novigrr practices modified thraldom, sort of, but it's contractual and limited in time. So it's not and it's not judicially imposed. So Novigrr, which is up here, practices judicial thraldom, does not practice judicial thraldom, but only contractual thraldom. So you could sign an indentured servitude contract for a period of time no longer than 5 years, at the end of which point you would have it usually used to pay off debts or to advance certain, to obtain certain benefits from a societal standpoint, also tied culturally to apprenticeships contracts, but not in a imposed or not in perpetuity, and not judicially imposed, right? You couldn't sentence someone to a thrall. You could only voluntarily do so, and it was very it's very not monitored, but like clearly defined. It's not like a slave. It is clearly defined about like expectations and requirements. It's like trade apprenticeships, yeah. But that exists in Novigrr. And now we have multiple degrees of murder, justifiable homicide, self-defense, involuntary manslaughter. Exactly. There are different definitions of how murder works and your culpability in that. So, like, all of that kind of works. So, charging interest for loans. This is one of the things that I believe in and I fully support. Um, we were talking last night about a bunch of this, and one of the things that I mentioned is that in the empire is expanding and is growing. Um, there is no, there are no collars. Maybe a torque, but no collars. Fine jewelry, it's fine. Um, in this Empire of Varum, which is created by this, it was created 500 years ago from the unification of this human kingdom, and the two major dwarf settlements in this mountain range. Um, uh, they are growing. There is a major banking system. Loan rates are monitored by supposedly monitored by the feudal lords in the empire. Um, Cortel and Walaba both have strict laws controlling. The only people who can loan money are the government in Cortel and Walaba, and repayment plans are established in any ways. Saling has decreed that any form of loaning of money is abhorrent and illegal. And Tenerique has a full banking system and loan system, but usury is an actual crime and is controlled. So yeah, Game Master Vault, like loans. There are plenty. There's a money lender, and yeah, exactly. So money lending is an interesting concept that can exist, but it doesn't have a lot of. It's in certain places it's a bigger issue than others. So we were talking about this last. I mentioned this last night, but I'll say it again. Faye asks, "Do any of the countries or regions or institutions have crafts or products they're particularly known for?" Tenerique is actually a mostly desert, except for around the arable land around the rivers, and they are famous for both their oils and their glass. Um, and as a home and bastion also for artisans of other types. They've kind of started, welcoming other types of artisans to come in. Um, the dwarves are the only people who know how to enchant metal and make enchantments and enchanted magical items. So the dwarf settlements within the Empire of Varum and there is a dwarven settlement. Where is it? It's in. Is it Northern Tenerique, I believe, or yes, yeah. In this northern, there's a small dwarf settlement in northern Tenerique that also has. They are the only people that know true enchantment and metal enchantment, so they make magical items. But the halflings are well known, like the halflings in on the mainland are well known for um, words food production and druids that come out of there. Walaba is one of the best known nations for threadcraft and weaving and dyeing. The orc territories are unique because they're mostly nomadic and have follow their herds. So they have beautiful weaving and threadcraft that they trade, but it's very limited because not a lot of trade goes to the orc territories. Cortel is mostly known for its, it is a little bit forested. And what, aside from their military prowess that they are rightfully proud of, they are also known for their wood carving and something like that. Um, I mean, you kind of get general. You have certain products that are going to be more well known versus others depending on where you are. All villages and towns are going to have some people that are going to do basic things and, are going to be known for various others, but territories that have certain um, environmental variability for certain things are going to become more well known for it. So the herd follow, like the orcs are following herds. They have more sheep, and more importantly, I'm giving them a bunch of goats and llamas. That's where they're threadcraft. Exactly. And then cities are more diverse based on available resources and trade that going through that. And then Tenerique is, mostly a basically abandoned desert. They have all of the sand with which to make glass, and they have a lot more. They are hoard the process by which you make glass, and don't share a lot of that information because they, guilds are a thing. Guilds are a thing. Um, exactly. There aren't a lot of like Novigur is mountainous and forested, but mostly pine forests and very little deciduous trees. So there is wood carving and stonework that comes out of Novigur, along with the dwarf settlements that exist here. Um, but you're not going to see glass blowing there as much. So yeah, so there's a lot of variation across the continent in how people work and how things change and what they develop. Ooh, it's 10 o'clock. Um, so okay, so it's just 10 o'clock. So what I'm thinking is um, I'm going to take a little break, so I can stretch and do all of that, bio, all those good things. Get some more water because mine's just about empty, and that's not good. So I'm gonna put a timer for like 8 minutes on the clock. But I'm also gonna do the same thing I did yesterday, where I'm going to put a poll up um, about what we should talk about when we come back. Um, get water and snacks. Exactly, water and snacks. And I'm going to put a poll up about what we should talk about when we get... Oh, hello, not there. What we should talk about when we get back. And then when we do... What should we talk about? So we're gonna do, let's give us 3 options. So religion, let's say history, no, let's say religion, Give me two more topics. Two more topics that you want to talk about, guys. Pirate dwarves. All right, I see. Or pirate halflings. They're pirate halflings. We'll add pirate. We'll talk about religion, pirate halflings. Monasticism. Let's talk about. Well, let's add that into religion. If we talk about, we'll talk about monasticism as. We'll just talk about monasticism as part of religion. And then we've got criminal organizations. I like that one. Criminal organizations. Okay. So, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let this poll run while I am on break, and then when I come back, I'll end the poll. So, see you in a little bit, everybody. Bye. Hello, everyone. We're back. I'm back, at least. How are you all? You stretch, you refresh, you get your snack on. It's like clap on, clap off, your snack on, snack off. But we have a poll to finish. We will close the poll. Aha. We're to complete the poll. The poll has been closed and completed, and the answer is criminal gangs won with 60% of the vote. How did I know? How did I know that we were going to be talking about criminal gangs? I felt it. Like it was came to me in a dream once. So, criminal gangs. We should talk about criminal gangs. Of course, every major city is going to have their own kind of thieves guild crime one. Yes, Valtiel, crime. In this case, crime did pay. At least me. You blame Pope, Crit. I mean, that's kind of fair. You're okay. I could see that. But so like each of the major cities are all going to have their local gangs, their local thieves guilds. Some are going to be more obvious than others. Goldrake. No. God, I love my community. It's great. I love each and every one of you and how you contribute to the joy that is my chaos that goes around me. This is a weird song. I don't know that I like it. I don't like it. There we go. That's better. Pope would make a great gang leader. That's an interesting thing. We'll have to see what happens. But, you know, like each of the major cities and each of the major countries has their own, you know, local gangs, local thieves guilds. Cortel is interesting because in Cortel, arcane magic is fully illegal and will get you arrested. So much so that they released magic hunting creatures in the cities at night to basically just wander around the city, and if anyone's practicing, you know, arcane magic within Cortel, they will find them. Yeah. Yeah, Game Masters, the gangs are the topic. Tenerique is... Yeah, magic eaters. More specifically, what are they? Because I actually have, notes about this in my notes. I has notes. Elucia, which is from the 5th edition Foes, which is a brilliant resource, and they're kind of like a cross between a panther and a dog that can can be trained for particular sense magic in the air and trained for arcane magic, and then can just be used to hunt them down. Pope says, I take my criminal cues from stories of the Yakuza and the Jewish Mafia. I mean, they're okay. The Yakuza are okay. There are, you know, so Cortel has got a couple, is very obvious, you know, has some anti-arcane magic going on. Tenerique has a large number of smugglers. They have public trade with the orc territories, but they are also smuggling with a bunch of the gnomes and dwarves in Varum across the major trade paths. The halflings of Sekele, are, again, we talked about it, they're privateers. They also engage in smuggling, and are well known for it here. Smuggling would be a lot of money. Walaba, like, again, everyone's gonna have their basic criminal gangs, small town things. Walaba's is interestingly different because they kind of treat most of their thieves guilds and kind of things as a actual guild, and as long as the guild pays taxes to the government and no one's caught in the act of the crime, it's kind of seen as like, well, it's just thievery or smuggling. We're okay with that. Murder, violent crime, they have issues with, but like, are you paying your taxes on your thieving? Are you? We're not going to actually look at your actual numbers, but if you generally pay taxes on while you're thieving, we're not going to bother you. I was like, I wanted to do that with one of them. But see, GM Volt, that's not a gang, right? GM Volt says, here's a cool gang, a group of religious zealots enforcing strict, twisted version of normal religion. The gang is made up of 5 members, but none are paladins. The Hand of Justice. It could be interesting. I mean, I could see that in some places, like probably in the Empire, that they tried to do that, but, or fight back about that. Probably are. See, I don't see that. That's not a gang. That's a cult. That's what the word you're looking for. Crit says the mafia of mafias with state sponsorship. Yeah, because can't mess with the IRS. There is a like established sort of traditional mafiosos in the Empire of Varum that engage in all of your favorites, including racketeering, corruption, all of those good things. Hi, Jim. Welcome in. We're here for you. Do you need another drink? I can't pour you one, but I'm here to support you in their choices. But yeah, so there is a growing, like, with the civilization of, like, the civilizing of Varum and making itself a major, attempting to make itself the major hegemony on the continent. There's been a rise of city living, urban living, so there's also been a rise in criminal actions beyond just a thieves guild that have slowly started to develop, and there's a growing tension between a couple like mafia gangs that run the port towns in the Empire and the halfling smugglers and privateers from Sekele, because they have some Sekele. They have some issues with them. That sounds like a great game, GM Vault. They say, my PCs are hunting a smuggler now in game. They smuggled in a magical gold trident for a merfolk lord. Lord backed out of paying, so the smuggler went to his cult buddies and kidnapped the lord's mermaid daughter. There we go. Kidnapping of mermaids. There is an assassins guild. They are very well known. They're also dedicated to the god of death, and are, if like there are normal assassins and general people you could apply, but if you can actually get the I haven't given them a name yet. But wait, hold on, I have them in my notes. I have them in my notes. Hold please. Yeah, the assassins, there's an assassin's they are, oh, okay. They are... I'll have to make up an actual name because I got rid of it. I didn't like it. It was too on the point kind of thing. It wasn't a favorite. So I have to give up with a new name for them. But they're general assassins who will take the jobs, right? Like most just general criminals. But the actual assassins who are dedicants and priests of the god of death only accept jobs when the deity of death acknowledges that this person should die. And because of that, they are kind of like the faceless, take the faceless men from Game of Thrones, but actually make them tied to death, and death validates they will only accept jobs that death has validated the kill on, and therefore it's they are sanctioned. Do you want to guess where the headquarters of that particular guild are? I'll let you guess where the headquarters of that particular guild are. Yeah, death says you should go and not come back. So, thoughts on where that Assassin's Guild is based out of? Which of these wonderful nations do you think it would be based out of? The vast empire of Varum, the military monarchy of Cortel, the theocracy of Saling. No, interesting choice, Pope. Possible, but Saling is dedicated to Mother Ashera. All of the gods are represented and acknowledged, but Mother Ashera is the protector goddess of Saling, and the Great Lady is a priestess of hers. No, it is from the Assassin's Guild comes from Uraba, the elves, the last elvish city. Yes, because a point that I'm going to have in this game is all priests of all of the priests of priestesses and dedicants of Vestru, which is the deity of death, each can contact the assassins member of their order, and whether they have personal knowledge of them or not, you can walk into a temple of Vestru, the deity of the dead, and yeah, they have they can get in contact for you with that. They also handle burials, certain religious death rites. Jim is going to lead me down a rabbit hole. Jim Otherdoc says, warning, possible rabbit hole. Is death micromanaging them, or do they send signs through intermediaries? Do they really always wait to get death's stamp of approval, or do they get creative with the interpretation of that one? No, when the contract is offered, the contract has to go through the temple, and the contract won't be accepted. There's a ritual that I've created out of it where if a person who wishes to contact them offers the contract, and if the contract is through a divine ritual, any of the priests of Vestru can perform the ritual. Not all of them are going to be then bound by the contract. When they perform the ritual, it's a very simple. If the contract burns, Vestru has accepted the contract. If the contract does not burn, this person does not deserve to die, and their life cannot be taken out of the weave because it is not yet their time. And the person asking for the assassination would be just told, "Yeah, I'm sorry, God, Vestru doesn't want them dead yet. Have a nice day. Please leave a donation to the temple as your way out." Exactly. Some burials are voluntary, some are not. Have a good night, Hawkeye. I hope your shift goes well. Yeah, Death's micromanaging is why some people slip through the cracks. Possibly. But it's not so much micromanaging as, like, you know, you right? It's an approval system. All of the contracts have to go through. You submit your request, and in 3 to 5 business days, we get back to you and say, "No, I'm sorry," or "Yes, okay. Here's the details." It's a very, very simple business, because at the end of the day, everyone dies, right? Death is not an evil. It is an existence. It is a norm. It is an acceptance. It just is. It is a fact. And so death is not evil, but it comes in its own time and in its own place. And if you are attempting to write someone and cause someone to die when it is not yet their time, well, I'm the person who, they are the deity that will cause their death and actually bring them to the land of the dead, and basically saying, "No, I'm good. I'm not going to do that." And I'm going to tell my minions not to do that. So, be careful about making contracts with assassins who might, be priests of Vestru. There you go. That's my statements. Coldrake. Yeah, so there's no distinguishable difference between the death god wanting someone to live and just being too busy to answer. Well, like, that's the thing is, like, are they ever too busy to answer? Because think about it, like, if you're on a continent, right, and and the way this world is built, it's like there is a single pantheon for all of the nations, because all of the people who are on this continent were survivors of the destruction of the eastern continent in an event we call I call it the Sundering. And so because of that, they're all the same pantheon, but each people worship them in different ways and different aspects of them, and therefore, different means, but they all worship they're all worshiping, right? And across the continent. So if you have a cleric of Praxilus, who's the god of justice, and also another cleric in like Saling versus a cleric of Praxilus in Varum, and they both at the same time need to be casting Zone of Truth, well, the god has to be in both places because they're allowing the imbuement of their own divine power into both of these individuals at the same time in the same instant, multiple places away. So death is all places and all peoples and all things at all times. So it's not that they're too busy, it's merely that their existence is always there. So everyone, anytime anyone offers a contract, they can automatically decide whether they're accepting or not. Atropos, the third sister, armed with a huge pair of shears, cut the thread of life. Death ain't gonna mess with her. Her shears are sharp. I mean, but they are a personification. Atropos might be the instant in which their fate, if thread is cut, but she's not death. That's Thanatos. Thanatos is death. The existence and of the primordial deity of just the end of life. It's fun. Exactly. There is no confusion. It really is. So we talked about the Assassin's Guild. We know about our smugglers. We know about the growing mafia organization in Varum. There isn't a lot of organized crime in the Orc territories because, again, mostly nomadic raiders and herdsmen. There's smuggling, but that's not really considered organized crime so much as just, yeah, we're smuggling across borders into Walaba and selling, but we have trade agreements with Tenerique. We do a little bit of, cross-border trading into portions of smuggling into other places, but, not really crazy. Oh yes, and there is a thriving forgery business going on in Tenerique. Just wait until the mineral prospectors get to the Orc territories. I mean, there is a large forested area there, as well as a number of creatures that live in those woods. They'd be danger. And right now, the mountain ranges that the dwarves live in and the gnomes live on are quite happy. Koldrake asks, is there a network of cooperation between the kingdoms of the crime organization? Is there a crime central council? Not really. Like, there's a general, accepted behavior of normal thieves guild kind of behavior that you can go from one country to another that will kind of get you acknowledged, but it's seen as kind of rude, to start picking pockets on somebody else's turf. You have, there is no central council of crime, no corporation, no nickname, no uncle. I see what you did there. There is no uncle yet. There is, a network of information that is shared between people, various thieves guilds and accepted things like that, but not a widespread, overarching 5 families ruling the criminal underworld of multiple cities across the United States in means and manners led to an unfortunate number of violent deaths. If dwarves live underground, why should they care about above ground territorial boundaries? Usually they don't. There are 3 major dwarf settlements, cities, and I'll use bright red for this. So there's one here, and then one over here, both of which are in Varum, and then one here on the border between Tenerique and Walaba. 500 years ago, the dwarfs had a problem. Nobody's 100% sure where. It's not discussed. They had a problem within their own territory and reached out to the human nation near their nearest border to for assistance in an alliance to deal with a problem. Spoiler alert, this is some sort of Underdark problem that is encroaching on dwarven territories, but the exact details aren't known outside of the political movers and shakers and whatever happened to deal with it. But since then, there's been an alliance between the two that have kind of benefited mutually. Both the dwarves and the human-dominated country. There are of course now also a bunch of halflings that live here that are providing a large number, that are south, that are kind of subsumed into this growing empire. And because they've also built more trade routes, the dwarves are controlling the trade. They build the tunnels that are going through from Varum down into Walaba and Tenerique, and they control those tunnels. So now there's a reason for them to interact with the surface world a lot more. Okay, so let me scroll back up. Question. Coldrake. Is the special tattoo in one country a free pass in the neighboring country, or is a W pickpocket treated like a lower form of life in a C or a T? It isn't like a most. I wouldn't say that there's a free pass so much as an acknowledgement of, yes, we like recognizing and but at the same time, it's unless you're coming because you need to get out of town because you possibly would have been arrested if you stayed, there's an expectation that if you're a newcomer to a place, you're not going to encroach on somebody else's territory without making certain business arrangements, other things, that kind of stuff. Other doc says, okay, so the gods of this world aren't like people per se. Yeah, no. You can always, I will always repeat and things. Yeah, other docs, so they're not, so one of the things that I decided with this game is I'm playing with both alignment and understanding of alignment, and the definition literally of alignment being an external versus an internal thing, right? If you are in line with an ideology and a thought process and an expectation, then acting against that perceived public alignment would have negative consequences, both from the outsiders who see you act against this, but also from the gods that would be like, hi, I am the god of justice. Everybody on this planet knows I'm the god of justice. You're wearing my symbol on you. I've given you these powers. I'm not going to let you go around being a murder asshole. I'm going to take that away from you. So there's that. And so what I did is I decided that this is the gods themselves cannot materialize, cannot come onto the material plane and interact directly on the material plane. They can only act through their own agents. But they're playing this vast kind of game to defend places against the encroachment of the evil gods across the multiverse. And the evil gods can only act through their own agents, demons and devils and various other, evil clerics and whatever. So they have representations, avatars of them. Less avatars, you have clerics and you have champions more than avatars. Dreamings of the gods in their represented forms, visions, visitations. I always liked a good term for a visitation. So there you go. GM Vault says, regarding the dwarves, they might care with whom they're trading this century. Yeah, there's a lot of trade issues for why they're caring about who's above ground on them. Coldrake, for decades in games, there were always bad guys or dangerous creatures adventurers were aimed at. Does this place have ancient haunted towers or ancient serpents or lich librarians? So, so, um, there are, of course, some level of ruins that exist, but because it's been 2,000 years since the sundering occurred. But a lot of the people, like, the sundering was caused by evil wizards fighting a war against of destruction and conquest, and good wizards having too much magic, and the two kind of causing a super volcano that destroyed the continent, along with dragons and other issues that came out of it. So because of that, there are, and if there are those kind of high-level villains, high-level magic users like a lich, or like these haunted towers. There are rumors of haunted towers in small towns, but most important people will say that's not really true, because a lot of people pay attention and are still afraid of arcane magic to an extent, right? It destroyed a continent. Cortel has full-on banned any arcane magic. Looking at you, wizards, sorcerers, warlocks, bards. Saling has limited it severely. They both, like, Cortel allows divine magic, but only on government permission, and Saling is a full-on theocracy, and they embrace divine magic all over the place. The only major academy of magic that is known is in Varum. Wallaba, Tenerique, and Novigur have traditions of apprenticeship with wizards and other kind of like arcane traditions in that way. There's rumors that there are still living elvish mages and elvish wizards in their own city-state, but no one really kind of goes there. Arcane domain clerics must be having a time. Well, that might be a problem for them getting in, right? But they have a large number of these, like, if there's a lich, or there are rumors of a lich, or like massive evil wizard is doing thing, somebody's gonna look into that, right? Unless it's, and that's the thing that I can talk about and like kind of embrace, and I haven't kind of finalized that because I want to kind of talk about that with my players, remembering of course that this game is going to begin with the players starting at level 14, right? I want this to be a high level game. So the players are going to start at level 14, and they have been retired, right? They went back home. They have their own, land, titles, money. They're living the high life as celebrities. So what did they do in there getting up to level 14 kind of thing? They might have fought a couple of these things as they came across them, but they weren't well known before the heroes dealt with them. And when I want to create this campaign, one of the things I particularly want to do is have having a retired necromancer. I mean, could be complicated. So what I want to do with this campaign is, like, they're going to go level 14 to, like, probably 18, maybe not all the way to 20, but level 14 to 18. I want to start with a couple solo episodes looking at where each of these player characters are now, but maybe talking about how did they become famous? What were they renowned for? What were all of these kind of things? And that might lead into a discussion about, like, well, that was this one evil lich's tower, but he was really hidden for a long period of time, and now we found him and we killed him, and destroyed his Horcrux. So there's that. and have those kind of things developed with my players as I kind of go into it. So I haven't built out a number of them. I have ideas, but I want to kind of see where my players want to do before I do that. There are a large number of monsters, like this area. This area here is there's large number of woodlands and wild spaces, and all of this is wild spaces where monsters and creatures live. There are rumors of great monstrous creatures that live in these areas, but nothing like a dragon. There hasn't been a sighting of a dragon since the Sundering. There also hasn't been any dragonborn since the Sundering, so people kind of believe that the dragons are extinct. Or at least on this continent, dragons are extinct. Exactly. There could be a bunch of stuff out here in this archipelago that people don't know about. There is a lot of stuff out there in that archipelago that people don't know about. But I'm not... Shh. Spoilers. GM Vault, is that a common thing in most RPGs? Deities cannot travel within the prime plane, the material plane. Greyhawk limits it, but if you're playing in Faerun, the gods just kind of randomly show up and are assholes. Like, Sword Coast gods showing up in the Sword Coast are just assholes. And then there's the line, Koldrek says, yeah, it depends. Some games are set in either the earlier times when gods walk the land or in the specific alignment of the cosmos that has made the scheme theme between the planes. Exactly. There's a lot of gods that end up in their own planar areas. Nope, you can't leave a prestidigitation. You can't prestidigitation in Cortel. You will get arrested and possibly executed. Yeah. So mask somebody who shows up as a sentient rapier in Faerun. No, it's okay, GM Vault. Like, it depends on the type of game and what game you're playing. So, in Witcher, which we've also played on this channel. Hi, if you don't know, and you guys are all new here, I have a YouTube. Where I post all of the VODs of all of the series. We play Witcher, the TTRPG. In the Witcher universe, there is the convergence of the spheres. Everybody knows that there are other planes of existence because everybody on this plane and all of the monsters came there from somewhere else. But the question of gods has never been confirmed, right? Like, gods is an amorphous idea, so that nobody's really sure. We've played Blue Rose, and in the Blue Rose campaign, the gods are real and work through agents and can materialize on the material plane in certain aspects and within like visitations and revelations, but they don't act upon the material plane. Unstable Dia says, question, why and how would someone summon a demon or a devil? Power, money, because they're corrupt and want or addicted to dark magic. I mean, there are lots of reasons someone might take to embrace the dark magics of the world. Devils are very good at contracts. A warlock may not necessarily know that he's making a contract with a devil. I'm betting that a certain person whose character made a contract in the game that Pope is GMing on Monday nights over on Laugh Love Lindy is made a very interesting deal. Yeah, they never read the fine print. Hashtag read the fine print. That's also in my Mechton game for corporate raiders. You need to read the fine print. It is a thing people should do. Yeah. Jim says the dragons are taking an eon off. They're hanging out in the hotel rooms having cocktails. I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. They will probably go ahead and possibly be viewed in the future. I don't know. I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows who they are. I mean, they were basically used to create a super volcano that destroyed a continent. It had problems that you would resulted from that. Begins writing up the Dragons of Vegas supplement. I mean, okay. Coldrake says, invoking demons, making contracts for power to coerce someone in some situations to screw with a foe. Exactly. There are lots of reasons why someone might want to engage a demon or a devil, or just, you know, want to fuck everything up because they're horrible, horrible people and they're evil. I mean, I acknowledge that there are, like, I love me a good motivation for an evil villain, but sometimes you don't need to have a sympathetic backstory for you villain. All you need is Vincent Price voicing them. And just a villain, an evil person. Or the how? Usually summoning rituals and a lot of magic that would not be acceptable in polite circles. I have one. Deal with it. It's my channel. So. You want a deity voiced by Keith David? That's also one of the, like, look, everybody who shows up and knows my games knows that I have things. And, like, you've all seen the NPC doc, right? So, like, this is the NPC doc for the Witcher game. If this is the one for Mechton, you know, this is the one for corporate raiders. I like putting face claims to all of my NPCs. It's a giant, you know, thing I do. I also have voice ideologies that go with that. We were actors who should just play it. So, like, Keith David is one of the gods. Yes, Keith David has already been cast as one of the gods in my head. Shh. Spoilers on who that would be. If you summon a fertility demon to get better harvest, how bad is that? Extremely, because there is a goddess of nature, and she be pissed at you. You're A, messing with her shit and messing in her world, and B, you brought this incarnation of evil onto her plane to try and take her job. Nah, man, she gonna deal with you. There's always a greater price to be paid when dealing with demons. Exactly. And you probably don't know what that price is before you pay it. And you definitely don't want to pay it. Coldrake says, I once created a backstory for a character, a kid teen that was scrambling around with a heap of old rocks on a dare. Rocks shifted, he fell into an old underground spot, and while half knocked out with a busted leg, he accidentally brushed a part of the summoning circle that had never been triggered. Stuff happened. I mean, yeah. Accidentally. Yeah. Not intentionally. GM, you started a vault, started the new campaign in a small city, had over 200 NPCs named with pictures, motivations, fears, etc. Yeah, I do that. I do that. What you just see is the public doc. Those are the docs that the players have and the information that the players have about these people. I have my doc, and you don't even want, like, those are special. Like, you don't want to do that, people. So, where are we at? What do we want to, what should we do next? We talked a lot about the world, we talked about the setting, we talked about the stability of the world. What should we consider next? Prevalence of classes and archetypes. Ooh, good. That's a good one. So, you know, of course it's going to vary throughout. I would say that this is a more not low magic setting, but not a low magic, low fantasy setting, but a slightly lower fantasy setting. There's a much smaller population worldwide. You're going to have, like, certain classes are going to be more prevalent in certain places. Not every priest is a cleric. Not every, but there are a couple, and they're usually going to be low level, right? Second or third level clerics that can do some basic healing and treatments and things that kind of help out around villages and places. But, like, PC level adventurers are rare. In the sense that they are, excuse me, PC level adventurers are rare because there's not a lot of people, you know, the furthest that people go might be to, like, the capital in their own country, but there's not a lot of spread for that. There are relative stability that can cause, without a need to press. All of the races are going to be, you know, species. I like species as a better term because there are some species that just don't interact. Are and can't crossbreed. No matter what your bard says, they might be able to engage in fornication across species line, but that does not mean that they're going to be able to crossbreed. Those are two very different ideas. Yeah, sometimes, Kolchak says, sometimes I get the impression adventurers are those people that can't hold a regular job. Possibly. But there are, like, I'm not going to have gunslingers because introducing gunpowder is not, I don't object to it it's just not in this setting world is planned. I didn't want it in this one. And then let's go to, just for a second, use our dear friend here. Class, right? Let's look at, oh no, let's just look at classes in general. Let's view all, right? Okay, so barbarians, yes. You're going to have barbarians, bards, clerics, druids, fighters, monks, Monks are a little weird because I have I have a lot of problem with the way the monk is written in 5th editions because it can be very stereotyping of a type of Eastern and very Confucian tied Buddhism, Shaolin, warrior monk ideology. But at the same time, people forget that, okay, so, but they don't have any of the religious ties that go with that ideology, right? Like, monks as written in 5e are all martial artists, but none of the philosophical or religious ideology that go with, oh, I don't know, the title of monk, whether that is an Eastern or like an Eastern religion monk or a Western religion monk, those are two separate things. So I kind of I have, like, if you want, I would talk to my players if they wanted to do that, because I think there are there are martial artists tied to different priests who are different religious orders who are non-casters. And I did this with knightly orders. There, you could be tied to a religious order or a god who are non-casters and therefore wouldn't necessarily get the benefit of divine magic, but are tied to a religion in some manner. And that's where I would go with a monk, sort of. But I don't. Or if they want to be an unarmed fighter who's dedicated themselves to their own prowess of fighting over and over and over again in self-achievement, then I would ask them to choose a different name than monk. Like, we would create a different title for them. Yeah, like, game creation for monk. Love the hand and feet action, but let's cut out all of the philosophical stuff from Carradine's Kung Fu series. I mean, yeah. Like, you could be a wuxia, like, we could take a wuxia series fighter. Love me some full-on wuxia Chinese dramas. I love really good Chinese dramas. But, and like, the martial world could be a thing that you exist. You could be an unarmed fighter. You could have different fighting paths that go with it. But I would not call them monks, either Eastern or Western. Yeah. And then paladins are definitely going to exist. We know that they are holy warriors. Rangers, yes. Rogues, of course. Sorcerers are dwarven drunken brawler. Exactly. Like, I would accept a dwarven drunken master using the stat block for a monk, but I wouldn't call them a monk. I think, like, that's one of the things that I think is much more, like, I hope in any new coming editions, it wouldn't even have to be a subclass of fighter, right? Like, you know, it could be because I would say that this isn't, I would take fighter, monk, and paladin and barbarian are all different enough that you could have this differentiation without monk. I'm using the term monk because that's what they're calling them. I would say instead that these are unarmed fighters, right? Martial artists. I would say fighters are also martial artists, but they're armed combat. So I would say fighters are armed. Monks, and I'm going to rename them martial artists, are unarmed. So you have armed, unarmed, brawler, barbarians, which I also have an issue with that terminology because it's inherently racist. Like, guys, you are aware where the word barbarian comes from, right? It's a It's a slur. It's a slur from the Greeks talking about their, Northern Europeans who can't talk right and they just say blah, 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 blah all the time and it's mocking them. I see that. I see that joke, GM Vault. Yeah, so I would say that rage fighters, armed fighters, unarmed fighters, and then there's paladins who are religious warriors, right? Exactly. It should be a class that should couch itself as unarmed martial traditions. That way you can have archetypes from all over the globe and not be hamstrung. Exactly, Pope. I would do that. Like for this campaign, that's what I would tell my players. It's like, look, we're not going to use this term. Unless, of course, unless I will let you use the term monk if you actually want to be tied to a religious order and have a religious, be an unarmed, basically be an unarmed paladin, right? Like, I would allow you to use the title monk if you wanted to be an unarmed paladin. You have a dad joke game because it's Father's Day, Jamble. I appreciate that. And I think that would be a better way of phrasing these things, right? We know we're going to have rangers. We know we're going to have rogues. Sorcerers in this world are going to be interesting and limited because they're a genetic anomaly. And I want to embrace that with the conception that sorcerers are all tied to this idea that your magic comes from a moment in your genetic past and this is an anomaly and you just the roll of the genes and the magic comes because someone in your family had relations with a magical creature of some sort that therefore infused your bloodline. There you go. Warlocks are a thing and anybody can always make a deal. Everybody wants to make a deal for power. It's how well you make that deal and whether that's a good idea or a bad idea. That is always a thing I love to play with when people want to give me a warlock. I'm like, come on, let's play. You want to make a deal? Let's make a deal. Yeah, there are some strange ass patrons out there. Wizards, again, I made an adjustment in this game where I said only either wizards could only be from either human or elven bloodlines, specifically. Which means you couldn't play an orc wizard, but you could play a half orc wizard, as long as it was either half human or half elf. You couldn't play a halfling wizard, but you could play a... I also hate halfling, but whatever. Artificers, I would accept artificers in this world, but they're much more limited, mostly limited to the gnomes and dwarves of Varum, and the mountain ranges, because they're where that kind of level of architecture, scientific focused advancement is developing, right? And so you're not going to get artificers down really outside of the major cities of Varum, or either in the dwarven cities or in the capital of Varum. We're not going to have blood hunter. Well, if a player really wanted to be a blood hunter, I would have to sit down and we'd have to have a real long conversation, because this is not really the setting for that. But if you really, really wanted to, I would make it work, because I want to play with I like helping my players find something. Yeah, Coldrake, there is the Academy, the Imperial Academy of Magic in Varum, and there's rumors of a academy of that a couple of the wizards, a couple elven wizards survived the Sundering and might have made a school for magic inside Uraba. But people don't go to... Non-elves don't go to Uraba. They just don't. Both between the geological reasonings and the magical things that are around Uraba, there are not... Non-elves don't go there. A few elves run some trade routes, mostly water trade routes. But so there might be... And then there are a couple like wandering mages who take apprentices in a couple other countries like Novigrur and Wallaba and Tenerique. But elflings. Halflings seem to have an unnatural fascination with elves, and I'm sure there's been at least one brave halfling that has tried to mate with an elf. I mean, that's fair. Also exists. Probably true. GM Vault says, I think a monk with a vow of silence would be interesting to play. As the player, I can talk to the GM to let them know what I want to do, but all the PC interactions are using a chalkboard around my neck, or sign language, or various other means that you could employ for that kind of discussion. That would be very interesting. As long as, having that level of doing that is fine, and doing it well is important, but I would embrace that. I would say that such a thing, embracing forms of disability is always appropriate. Everybody can play a game. Games are for everybody. And that's how I met your mother, folks. I see you, Coldrake. So. Just checking to see if there are any questions, because I think I've caught up on everybody. Pantomime, yeah, lots of ways in which you could do that. There are lots of things you could do. Why Silence? Throat was almost cut. I mean, fair. Or just happened to be born that way, or various, diseases or infections can cause that. Lots of things that you could do with that. Maybe because it sounds like Gilbert Godfrey. I mean, too soon, GM Vault. We lost our dear friend Gilbert Godfrey this year. Hard but resolute. Sacrificing for life. Monster to fight monsters. Or the Ghost Hunter. Yeah, I mean, I might allow Blood Hunters, but they would probably not be real well liked. Just conceptually within the world. where you could go. Half-lack? I mean, okay. Okay. Um, I think, like, straight up, there would be very few things that I would straight ban. Like, there would be limits that I would place on, some of the greater, like, I've placed some limits on, um, species, like the divine bloodlines, either celestial or infernal, tieflings, Asimars, are rare but occur. Most it would be extremely rare and is a genetic anomaly. Uh, yeah, see, Jim, I would embrace that. Coldrake says, "Blood hunters stink of magic." Gasps and grabbing a pitchfork. I mean, yeah, that would be a problem. Um, like I limited I limited let's look at races, right? Species, we'll call them species. You're a genetic anomaly, that's fair. Dragonborn, no one has seen on the continent in over 2,000 years since the destruction of the Sundering. Dwarfs, yes. Elves, rare and have one major city-state left, although a couple wandering dwarves are not uncommon. Gnomes usually live on the outside of the mountains that the dwarves live within, because they work together pretty well and are quite fond of being small races against the world. Half elves, uncommon because elves themselves are uncommon, but exist. Halflings, the three major halfling settlements in southern Novigrad, southern Varum, and on the island of Sekele. I might change the name of that just to make it easier to say. Half-orcs, uncommon, but exist, mostly because the more common in Tenerique and Wallaba. I managed not to sneeze on you all. Humans, yes. Tieflings, again, like Aasimar, genetic anomalies could possibly show up. Whatever. Orcs, probably not the Wild Mount version, but... or the Exandria version. Thank you. I'm not gonna let Theros in. We don't need Ravenloft. Owlin? If they are, they're an anomaly that almost no one has ever seen before. Same with Aarakocra. Aasimar, yes, again, very rare, but heard of and seen. I think I'm gonna say... Bugbears, no. Like, just no on the bugbear. No on the centaur, right? Neither of the bugbear nor the centaur. Genasi I'm thinking about. Changelings... changelings could be interesting, but I think it would pull the game into a way where we're talking about Fey realms in a world that I don't want to kind of go into at this moment. I'm spending a lot of time talking about Fey or conceptions. Yeah, if there was like an Owlin or Tortles or Aarakocra, those were probably just, like tortured magical experiments that were a fallout of the Sundering and the war that came from it. Nobody knows about deep gnomes or Dweragar, mostly because they don't really know about the Underdark at the moment, although they exist, but no one really knows. Coming back to Genasi. Yeah, I'm kind of gonna go with none of the Feywild races at this point, because I don't think they really fit the setting. So no on the fairies, no on the Eladrin, no on the Changeling. Firbolgs. I'm gonna go with Firbolgs are also part of that, or a species that were created out of survivors, but again, these are such a small portion of the population. Such a small portion of the population because very few of them would have, like, they wouldn't have all been, there wasn't a large percentage of these experiments made, so they wouldn't necessarily have a large breeding population over the last 2,000 years. So Firbolgs maybe. I'm coming back to Genasi. I haven't decided. No on the Githyanki or Githzeri. Both of these do not need to exist in this. They don't exist in this system, in this world. Go away. Goblins are not a player. Goblins are not for player characters. I already made that rule. Goliaths, I would say are typed. I put Goliaths with orcs together because the orcs that I created aren't really a race as they're defined. So I would say that you could play a Goliath as a type of one of the four orcs that exists. Yeah, I'm gonna say no to Harnagon or Hobgoblins. Kenku is gonna fall into that same pile with Aarakocra and, Owlin. And even Firbolgs, these are all small population, whatever. No on the Kobold. Ooh, Lizard Folk. Lizard Folk is unique because I have an idea for where there might be Lizard Folk, but they're not known to other people on the continent. Lizard Folk are not known, but they do exist. GM Vault says, I have an interesting PCs this campaign. A changeling witch who is the daughter of a previous campaign's PC, a barbarian who's afraid of raging, the Aasimar cleric of Osmodius, a sylph pirate bard who's a pacifist. That's interesting. And the human girl turned into a fawn by the magic of the Fae demigod amulet embedded in her chest. I mean, that's just straight up interesting. Sadly, the other player who made a Skinwalker Marshal had to bow out of the campaign. Sorry about that. Coldrick says, I once played a 2-meter bipedal ant warrior with the story being a magic user experiments with regular ants trying to turn mega warriors and helpers. I mean, yeah. I try for certain sometimes I'm just like, no, we're not putting this in this world because it doesn't fit, right? Like, Tardigon doesn't fit. You can claim that the Firbolg and the Aarakocra, and even I kind of question Owlin, but would be experiments that evil wizards were doing before the Sundering, and a couple of them survived enough to breed in small doses that they exist. There's no reason for that same evil wizard would not be looking at rabbits as their, you know, shock troops of their army of evil. No. No on the kobolds. Again, I would say that minotaurs would fall into that same kind of thing. Evil, you know, twisted, but unlikely. We know about orcs. Satyrs, no. Sea elves. I think the only person who would know if they exist or not would be those halfling pirates. Shatter Kai, no, because I'm not playing with the Fey Realm. Shifters. Shifters, I would say yes. Because shifters exist in a, it is a goofy looking minotaur. Like, that's a minotaur teenager who hasn't grown into their horns. No. Mm-mm. Yeah, I don't want those as my shock troops. Shifters, probably. Tabaxi, again, I could see them as part of our evil. We would have to come up with a specific backstory. Tortles. Ooh, turtles and lizard folk both exist, but they are an entirely different evolutionary path, and no one has actually seen them before. That's okay. Tritons, like sea elves, no one, if they are there, no one knows about them. Coming back to Genasi, I still haven't decided about Genasi. I'm gonna say no on Yuan-Ti, because there are some things that are going in there. Okay, so we already talked about those. Nobody from Eberron, because they're all Eberron specific. None of the Gith. None of the Ravnica. None of the AI. Or Grung. We're good. But it's going to be a much more limited species options than I would. I don't say, whenever I build a world, right, and we're playing together at the table and we're setting up the game, I'm going to sit there and tell people, it's like, not everything that exists as there are rules for in D&D is for every game. Right? Not every game is going to have space for every possible permutation of an idea that you had. So you need to have some level of buy-in into this world where there will be limitations. And please work with me on these limitations, because it can make the game better. It makes you more focused, and rather than being like, I want to be this, this, and this is the great outlier, you know. It doesn't help, right? At the end of the day, it really doesn't help. the world. And I would want to, everyone to be able to buy into this and reach to that same conclusion and, see that this world is very specific in what it's doing, and those limitations are going to help. Help me to help you, right? Let me not, don't fight me because you were like, that, and that goes back to what we were saying earlier about session 0 and building characters together and having character creation done at session 0 as part of the buy-in into the campaign, and realizing that, perhaps maybe you want to consider the fact that you don't want to bring a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle to this game that's going to be a little bit more, it's like, don't have a preconceived idea about what the character you want to play based on all of the possible permutations. Consider the world in which you're going to be playing. Exactly. You have to work within the, as Jim says, you have to work within the ecology of whatever setting you're playing in. You don't bring Eberron characters into Greyhawk. It's just a bad idea. It doesn't, and sometimes those are good things. Like, just the way the world works, people, and it's not bad. Sometimes the best thing somebody can tell you is no. And that's the thing that you can do in games, is like, yes-anding in the game is great up to a point, but sometimes the drama can come from somebody saying no. No and can also be great for drama and story and development, and that's not a bad thing. Right? You can no and just as much as you yes and. Well, you should probably yes and slightly more than no anding, but yeah. But it is now well after 11:30. It is 11:40. I am starting to feel tired. I think I need to go to bed as well. So I'm gonna set up. We should go raid somebody, right? We should send some love out into the world. Who should we go raid? Who's up to? Ooh, Johnny's up. Johnny's the only one up tonight. So we should go send some love to Johnny. Johnny Blam's doing some, It is 11:38 here, Game Master Vault. I am on East Coast time. We should go raid Johnny. Johnny Blam's playing some Red Dead Redemption 2 Wild RP. And, I will see you next time. Bye, everybody.